20 minutes later, I got an email back from Les Claypool saying, we got your video and we really like what we're hearing, and we would like you to come make some noise with us in person. And I'm like, oh my God. Me and my wife were jumping up and down and screaming in my kitchen.
Mike, it's awesome to see you. Whereabouts are you today?
I'm in the northern part of San Diego County in California. So, we as with any large city region, it's basically, I tell people I live in San Diego, but I'm in the North County region, which is, technically not in San Diego, but it's still San Diego County. So, that's where my primary work is. Lots of gigs and teaching here. And I'm currently in Encinitas, California, which is, relatively small, but it's how can you say a small town when it's in the middle of, metropolis, basically?
Totally relate. I mean, for shorthand, people don't know, and I'm asked, I say I'm in Paris. We're in the suburbs of Paris, and we're in a cool suburb, which is, I think the census of this place is only like 19 or 20,000 people, but it connects to the much bigger city next to us. It kind of sort of, unless you know where the line is, like you don't know you're in the other place. I appreciate you jumping on the call, man. It's
pleasure to finally get to talk to you, and not quite in real life, but in virtual life in real time, at least.
Yeah, but before we started recording, I was saying I realized. I knew, but it sort of hadn't hit me that I've never actually met you in person, and we actually haven't done a video chat. I believe we did do one or two phone calls, but it was pretty much all email. We have a really good common friend who I'm sadly super out of touch with, but we know each other through Carl King, who is a wizard in multi-dimensions. How do you know Carl? What's your Carl King connection?
I followed him for several years on, way back in MySpace days, and really admired his output and enjoyed the what he created when MySpace was in its death throes, and everybody was migrating to Facebook. I found him on there, and I've got this solo kind of ambient noise music project that I do called Demiso. And I had put out a lot of music on MySpace that way. And knowing how technical Carl's music can be, I never thought that I would be, anywhere on his radar whatsoever with my haphazard noise kind of improvisations. At one point, I just having fun with pretending that I'm multilingual, I basically put out a post that said something like, "Yo soy Demiso," and he responded, really? And I'm thinking, oh boy, here it comes. He's going to tell me what he actually thinks of what I do, I don't know if you remember his videos about, how Tool are not weird or dark, or, he could be kind of blistering as a critic of certain things. And of course, that was all in a character as well when he was.
Yeah.
Actually, it turned out he kind of liked what I was doing, as undisciplined as it is. And we started forming a friendship there. And I didn't actually meet him in person until I think it was maybe 1 or 2 years after connecting with him on Facebook. I saw him in person at the NAMM show, just walking around, and I made it a point to at least stop and introduce myself properly and shake his hand. And he was obviously on his way to do something, as happens at conventions. You see somebody and you're like, hey, hey, we finally meet. Okay, bye. He appreciated that I actually took the time to say hi, even though there was obviously not going to be time for a conversation. So we started conversing quite a bit, and honestly, we ended up being best friends. It's he's I converse with him on a daily basis, mostly by text, but we're it's almost like a brotherly kind of thing. We're constantly in each other's business, and he's provided me with many opportunities that have kind of boosted my self-confidence. He's given me lots of solicited and unsolicited advice over the years that have really helped drive me in proper directions. So it's my relationship with Carl has been very beneficial not just from a a content generation. Like he made a very nice 12-minute like mini documentary about me way back in 2012. He included me with the in his documentary about Morgan Ogren, which was, pretty exciting for me. He included me in his 2017 album, Grand Architects of the Universe, along with some of the most incredible drummers on the planet. So that was like quite the ego boost.
I'm on there too, actually.
Yeah.
I'm on there too. I do a spoken word bit.
Nice,
that's another story. I'll get to it.
That's my one and only mention in Modern Drummer magazine is being in the credits for that, alongside,
oh, it's not that record. I'm on part 3 of the How to Sell the World. Sorry, continue. I'll tell you my Carl story in a minute. But
yeah, he's just, he's had good advice like over the years. Like one of my main gigs is I play in a corporate dance band here in San Diego called Atomic Groove. And I had never done a band like that before. And it's, it's a lot of pop music, a lot of dance music, some real cheesy stuff going on. When I told him that I was considering, doing this project or this band, it was, they get a lot of work. So it would be, beneficial that way. Kind of apprehensive to take it on because none of that music is stuff that's exciting for me. And it's got that kind of stigma of it, it feels like some sort of casino band or a wedding band or that sort of kind of thing. When Carl asked me at one point what I was going to do about that, I said, I don't know. I don't think I want to do it. And he said, well, why not? And I was like, well, I don't know. They're playing like Justin Timberlake and Beyonce and, just stuff that I'm not excited by. And he just flat out said, Mike, this is something you need to do. You don't have to do it forever, but this is a good experience for you to have. So you should at least try it out. So I did end up joining that band, and I've been with them for 8 years now. And it's been some of the most fun of any of the bands that I've ever been in, and it's been the most financially advantageous. It's constant work, and it's made me grow in ways that I wouldn't have expected. And it's even got me doing lead vocals out in front, from behind the kit as well, which is I've never done that before. So it's just one example of many of Carl just kind of pushing me to grow and to have some humility and also to have the self-confidence to do things that maybe I thought I wasn't capable of doing, but tried it anyway, like the Grand Architects thing. Like when he asked me to do that, I just said yes because of who else was going to be on it. And because I did legitimately want to work with him. But as soon as he sent me the track that I was to do drums for, I was like, oh my God. What did I get myself?
Did you have like a mini heart attack when you heard whatever he programmed?
Just a little bit. It took me 3 weeks of woodshedding on that track to get it down to the point where I could play it all the way through. He'd given me some grace on that, saying, you don't have to do it all in one take.
You don't have to hit all these accents. You can give me the intro, and he could cut it together, basically.
Yeah, or I could have, done it from my home studio as well. But given who else was going to be on that album, we're talking, Virgil Donati, Thomas Lang, Marco Miniman.
Marco was on there? Yeah,
Marco's on there. Morgan Ogren's on there. Travis Orban is just a monster, and he's, so
I think he's on there quite a few tracks, I believe.
Well, he's the main.
He's
drummer
like kind of like the main drummer on the thing. Yeah.
There's only 2 tracks on the whole album that have one drummer on them, and that's my track and Virgil Donati's track, so it's like everything else. All the guest drummers were basically just doing solo bits in between Travis Orban's parts. So it's that to even be able to be on a collection like that was just a severe ego boost or a confidence boost. I say an ego boost, but there's
no
way I can compare myself to any of those players. Those all of those players are doing stuff that I still find impossible for myself to do.
For most mortals, we're talking to get acquainted, and we're also recording this to share part of it. For the sake of anybody watching this on YouTube, our friend Carl King, among his many hats, is that he got known mostly at first doing a character that he called Sir Millard Mulch that put out all this extremely progressive, rock, art rock pop. I mean, sort of the closest thing to like a modern Frank Zappa kind of a guy, to the point that a lot of the later stage Zappa collaborators, like Mike Keneally, the wizard guitarist, is like been a collaborator. And he nowadays, I don't think Dweezil's on any of his records, but like Carl.
No, Dweezil's on Grand Architects also.
Is he on Grand Architects?
Yeah,
I know that Carl knows him because Carl's day job is doing high-end kind of video production. He's the guy mastermind behind guitartricks.com. Like he does all their video. Yeah. Right. I mean, the direction, the shooting, the editing, I mean, guitartricks.com. But Carl, among his many skills, I mean, amazing musician, composer, and really a guy who just understands marketing. And his magnum opus had been a double album called How to Sell the World to Everybody, or I'm mangling the title of the record. What's the record called? Do you know? I'll put you on the spot. How to Sell the Whole Effing World.
Yeah, and Once and for All, or it's very it's got some very convoluted album titles, which is part of one of. I mean, he can be very absurd, and that's one of the things that I enjoy most about his personality and his output. Because
I'm the same. Yeah,
it's not only impressive, but it's very witty. Like one of my favorite tracks from him is called "I'm an Artist and I Shouldn't Have to Work for a Living." And it's like I can relate to it in so many ways, because I still work a day job despite being a quote unquote successful drummer. That's one of my favorite jokes. I was cleaning a pool once, and the owner of the pool in question was also a hobbyist drummer. And his dad was there, and he was all excited to introduce me to his dad because I'm a successful drummer, and he's introducing me as such. And I turned to his father and pointed at my pool cleaning equipment and said, "Behold, the tools of the successful drummer."
Yeah, it can be really hard to earn a living, and I think some people have the delusion that just because there are even people who are in touring bands that are known to some degree, but then they have some other gig when the band's off the road and off cycle between tours and stuff, and it's like they go back to their regular gig, and the point is doing it because you love it, which is I'll tell you how I knew Carl, but I'm going to ask you point blank in a minute, like why you said yes to helping me with this thing. But I know Carl probably, I want to say 2008, and I likewise was on MySpace back when MySpace was MySpace. But I met him through our common friend Chris Sanders. He's one of my best friends in real life, and they were friends. They were friends. And when Carl moved to Los Angeles, he was a roommate in a house where was a friend of a friend of a friend of my friend Chris. Carl and I used to have that same relationship, and so you please tell him hi, because I don't talk to him nearly often enough. But Carl and I were thick as thieves for quite a few years, and then very regularly in contact. When I saw from the posts and everything, I got to know you through seeing Carl's posts. I've been off Facebook since actually the early days of the pandemic. I didn't want to, at the time I had a few podcasts, and one was moderately successful. And when I had to go back to LA, I didn't want to narrate the zombie apocalypse. And plus I'm from the Southern US, and I saw that fully half the people from where I was from were going to break in a way that's not me. And I saw this whole cultural war thing about to blow up. And I'm like, this is a great time for me to unplug my microphone of talking to people publicly about stuff. So I'm glad I did. But so I was still following friends and such. And I would see Carl's posts with you for the years leading up to that. And I got to be aware of you, and you would post. I mean, I thought your Demiso stuff you posted was really cool, and it's up my alley. And, I got to respect your abilities and appreciate what you were about just from a lot of it's not even music related, but just like you hanging out with Carl, a lot of it was like going to NAMM or doing this or that. But I thought, well, this is obviously a really good guy. And I honestly forget if I reached out to you directly or if I asked Carl to introduce us. Do you remember? And I mean, I don't have any way to look it up. I mean, do you remember how I contacted you? If it was me directly and said, "Hey, I'm a friend of Carl," or if maybe Carl made an intro or something?
I don't recall, but I am a bit of a connection hoarder. I mean, I think that's kind of a necessity if you're trying to be an artist of any kind of level of success. So that really,
I know we had connected just to like say hi, and we would also like and comment occasionally when on each other's stuff. So we had established that parasocial kind of relationship that kids a lot younger than us have no idea that there was anything else. Basically,
it typically, like if there's somebody that I'm close with or that I admire, I do typically try and inject myself into those social circles. I mean, and that sort of thing has led to many great connections over the years. I mean, that's what's gotten me, a lot of the opportunities that I've gotten has just been, the networking aspect, even on such a passive level as trying to, seeing somebody's a mutual. And so I'll just send them a friend request. So, I don't recall, how we were introduced initially, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like I saw that you were in Carl's circles, so I figured this is probably a good person to connect with.
Right on. Well, and likewise, it could have been me doing the same thing with exact same mentality. So I wouldn't be surprised. What's really your background with drums before we talk about Wonderland and what you were nice enough to do on this track that I'm releasing? It was called Hot Sand when I sent it to you. It's Wonderland in the release. And it's out February 14th. So it's out as of the time anybody sees this video. But before we get there, what's kind of your backstory with drums and music in general?
Well, I've always loved music. For as long as I can remember, I've been probably, my earliest memory would be my parents listening to the soundtrack for The Sting on vinyl in the basement of our house in Casper, Wyoming, listening to The Entertainer and having that I must have been 4 or 5 years old. And just that the energy of that music was so exciting for me that it just caused me to run around in circles in the living room. And so I know, music has always affected me greatly. As I got older, I knew I wanted to do something. I know I would sing along with music a lot, but I didn't. I took piano lessons when I was, I want to say 6 or 7, but the discipline for that was incredibly boring for me, and I wasn't able to really focus on it. I probably, I'm probably ADHD. I've never been diagnosed, but I know my attention span is very short until it isn't. When I was about 11 years old, my sister brought to my attention Rush. Like she had Exit Stage Left on vinyl. She heard YYZ on, that version. And I remember it like it was yesterday, her calling me from my bedroom going, "Michael, you have to hear this." And at, nice full volume on the giant console, stereo like everybody had back in those days.
Like the living room stereo, basically.
Yeah.
There was a piece of furniture as well as a stereo.
Yeah, the speakers were as tall as I was, and it was like a glass cabinet with all the components in it. I just remember hearing what was going on there and just being so amazed that there was one person making all of that sound. I even remember thinking, when it got to the bell part, for some reason, I thought he was doing that behind his head, because it was already so ridiculous that, by the time he gets to the cowbell part in the drum solo, my brain is already like overthinking it dramatically. But that was like literally the moment that I knew I wanted to be a drummer. I didn't even know what a snare drum or hi-hats were at that point, but I knew I wanted to be able to make noise like that. So that was like the beginning of my love of drumming. I didn't get my first drum set until I was 13, and I proceeded to attempt to teach myself how to play. And when I say that, I see a lot of people that say they're self-taught, but I mean, really, self-taught musicians are typically copying their heroes. You're still learning from somebody else. You're just
Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen, my case, and Ace Frehley.
Yeah,
rest in peace.
If you take that route, you're just doing it the hard way. Like, instead of having somebody who knows how to do it show you how to do it, That's not really teaching yourself. I mean, it kind of is, but now that I teach drumming, it's, I see so many examples where I can go, I made this mistake. So yeah, I mean, I was in my first working band by the time I was 16. And so I was playing all over Wyoming and Colorado with a bar band, basically. I didn't have a work permit, but we just told all the bars that I had a work permit, and they would just like, there were some bars that were like, all right, well, the kids got to go outside in between sets. You can't be hanging out.
Right.
And then there were other bars where the waitresses were like, hey, let's give that little boy some drinks.
Rum and Coke. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my first mixed drink. That's actually what I'm drinking right now. Rum and Coke Zero, because,
Well, I'm actually approaching 3 years sober at this point.
Congrats.
That's thank you. That's it's not like I hit rock bottom or anything. I got to a point where I was studying for an incredibly great opportunity with one of my favorite musicians of all time, and it was the most difficult music I've ever had to work on. So I was practicing like mad, and still finding time to have beers on a daily basis. And I decided, well, actually my wife said, one day when I got home from a gig and there were only 2 beers left in the fridge, she had one and I had one, and she suggested we take a break from drinking for a little while. And I said, you know what, that's a great idea, because I really need to focus on this project anyway. And once I got a couple weeks into it, I just realized that I really was not interested in drinking anymore. So I just, that was it. I haven't drank since.
So you were in a gigging band at 16, and what was sort of the next sort of chapter? I mean, how long did that last? Were you with that band for a while, or did you did you do that kind of thing for a minute?
That lasted a couple of years, and that was just basically playing classic rock and a lot of country and a little bit of metal. Like that band would literally, in the course of an evening, go from Hank Williams Sr. to Iron Maiden. It was quite a variance. But after a couple of years, that band kind of just imploded. I just ended up kind of lollygagging around for a while until I met a musician from San Diego that was just an incredible guitarist, and he wanted to move back to San Diego, which I was born in San Diego, but we moved to Wyoming when I was like 6 months old. So my whole life I went back here in San Diego. I meet an amazing guitarist, and he ends up moving back. And one day he called me and was like, you've got to get back here, just do it, figure it out, just drop everything and get out here. So I literally, I gave away most of my stuff. I, sold whatever I had that was sellable, got in my van and moved to California by myself with my drums and my clothes, and proceeded to try and find a way to make a life as a professional musician. Quite a rough beginning, because, I spent the first 6 months just living in my van, and, try finding work when you don't have an address and you don't have a phone. Anybody that thinks people can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, first
you got to have boots.
Yeah. and an understanding of physics. If it wasn't for, again, just trying to be friendly and meeting with people, that's how I got, started finding work, is just from, trying to be a good person and just getting along with people. I was able to find some under the counter work for a guy doing, siding on new houses. And then, at one point his tools got stolen, so that job went away. And, I ended up getting into my first California band, which was, not the kind of stuff that I wanted to do. They were like, this was like in 92. And so, grunge is taking over, and I ended up getting into a band that was still holding on very tightly to the hair metal days.
Like hair metal stuff. Yeah.
But I was just, all I wanted was to just be playing with somebody. So, cause I'd been, just kind of floating about for 6 months. And, so I joined the band and, played with them for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Ever since then, it's just been band after band. I mean, I at some point I'm going to have to sit down and write a list of all the bands that I've been in. I've played in so many different situations at this point. It's almost laughable.
I love getting to know that. I know, since I know you from Carl and your Demiso project, but I also then have, especially later, seen you gigging with the show band that you play in, which you guys, it's like stone cold pros. I mean, you guys are smoking, and
yeah, they're really
everybody can play and sing their ass off from what I've seen, and I think people who aren't musicians or don't understand it at least a little better don't understand what goes into a band like that. It's like these are every one of these people. I mean, maybe they do or don't have the ability to write some song that's going to last for generations, but like every single person in a band like that can play their ass off generally, if they're any good and they last. And it's like a real working musician's kind of a gig, and then it's something to be proud of. I mean, a lot of people play in bands that want to be that band and you're actually in one that's like getting it done.
It's been a great experience working in a band like that, because they are all pros, and that's after years of treat it like a weekend warrior thing, or people that don't have the same sense of professionalism. Now I'm kind of spoiled. I mean, I'm playing with people that know how to put together a set so that there's no break in between songs. It's just, I mean, we hit the stage and you're in for a ride until the end of the set, And now when I see bands, or when I fill in for a band and there's these uncomfortable breaks in between, it's like, guys, come on, let's figure it out.
This is a show. This is a show. We got to give to the people.
Dead air.
Yeah. People expect, whether it's in a bar or a casino or a big, huge venue. It's like people expect a show, and that's part of what separates the professionals from everybody else. I mean, well, in my case, I mean, you don't know all this maybe backstory about me, but for the sake of anybody watching this, the part of this that we put on YouTube, besides us just talking, I always really had, my first goal was to be a professional guitarist and songwriter, and had a band in Atlanta that ended up, we were around for 7 years. And I mean, my joke is that we were almost famous for 15 minutes. I mean, maybe it's probably more like 5 minutes, but we had a period where all the major labels knew about us. And, at the time when there were like 7 or 8 of them, and there were 3 who were different degrees of interested in us. Some would see a showcase or ask us to do a showcase, and, send us your next demo, and were in touch with us. And there was a period of time where I thought that it was really going to happen for me as a, rock and roll guitarist and songwriter. And we had a lead singer who wrote the lyrics, and our bass player is a great guy named Rich. And we were 4-piece, our drummer. And I was writing this stuff that was really needed like 3 guitars. I see a band like Foo Fighters or something, and I'm like, in terms of, you got the money and and Dave Grohl has the experience. I was like, yeah, to do that music live properly, you need 3 people playing guitar to do that right, because you're trying to get the essential parts that you tracked in the studio. I was doing stuff where I would have to, I do the part like a comp part, but like later when we would record demos and whatnot, I'd be laying on so many guitars. It would be like a guitar army, which, is kind of the approach that I took on this song that's now called Wonderland, that is now released. But with this band of mine, we were called Minority Rules. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And my drummer, Tammy Hurt, became a huge deal in the music business. She acted as our manager until we got professional management involved. And that's its whole own, that's its entire, like if I was podcasting, that would be a podcast series just about that band. But we were a hard rock soul band. We were super hard. We were, somebody who liked this described us as Prince meets Led Zeppelin, because our singer was a self-described angry Black Latino man. And I was the long haired, my hair used to be like down to my ass. And our bass player, Rich, big, beefy, kind of happened to be Filipino guy. And our drummer was a fairly petite girl, Tammy Hurt. And we called ourselves Minority Rules, and people thought it was some reference to the fact that we're multi-ethnic and gender. It was a political comment about power rests in the hands of a few. But we understood the second meaning that people who didn't go that deep or didn't care or would naturally assign this other meaning that's more obvious, and that's fine. Bless her heart, Tammy went on to be, I may be getting the exact number of years and details wrong, but she became eventually the president of the Atlanta chapter of the Grammys. She has finished being 4 years, I think it was, as chair of the board of the Grammys, and now she's like executive chair emeritus of the Grammys. She became one of the biggest people in the music industry. That's my old drummer for 7 years, who was like my big sister. And she's awesome. Tammy's a total badass. If people saw, I didn't watch it this year, so I don't know, but I remember last year's Grammys, like the house band is a lot of Tammy, and she's a total badass. So my standards are pretty high, Mike, but holy shit, man, you brought the hammer to this. So with Wonderland, the backstory on this crazy song is that I went back, I was saying that I was always focused on being a musician, but I was also in film school. And so I really intended to do the two things, to be a filmmaker and to be a musician. And I wanted to do both things in parallel. And finally, in my later 50s, that's kind of what I've been doing the last few years, where I'm blending the two together. But when no one knew what's going to happen, I'd had to leave. I was living in Beijing and doing China Hollywood stuff as a film guy. And pandemic happened. I had to leave China. And I went back and I sublet a friend's place in LA that he was stuck out of the country as well. Turned out to be permanently. But I sublet my buddy's place and I'm there and I've got a guitar borrowed from a friend and I've got my little laptop and a little recording interface. And there's a friend's amp that I've got. And I'm like, I've got to do something. I'm going crazy. And so I had all these thoughts and ideas. And the biggest feeling I had was, am I going to see Susie again? My then girlfriend, who's now my wife. And I've never really been a lyricist. I'm a writer in film, but I've never been I've always written the music of songs, but I've never been the writing the lyrics, at least to where I'm going to show anybody. So Wonderland's kind of a big deal for me because it's actually now my second release, because I did a thing for a soundtrack where I produced the whole thing. But this is my very first release as with my name as my own self-conceived artist project. And I'm doing it for passion. I don't have any illusions. I'm a balding 57-year-old who doesn't do this full time. I have no illusions, but damn it, I'm really proud of the result of this. And, I started working on it. At the time it was GarageBand on my little MacBook Air. And then during the pandemic, Apple made Logic Pro free as sort of, a lot of companies found a little altruism for a minute during the pandemic, and they would certain subscription things. Oh, it's free for now, because it's I guess everybody thought the world might end and they wanted to die with the most subscriber count or something. But Apple made Logic Pro free for about a year, and I got Logic and I learned Logic. I'm like, oh, it's like GarageBand is it's like Logic with training wheels. And so I started putting this down. And the first thing I did once I had the structure was I went from my simple little loop just to keep time as I was tracking these scratch guitar tracks. And I was playing around with Apple's Drummer, and I had the basic track that was essentially the loop, and then I would cut it up, and then okay, so this, here's where it goes crazy. Here's where it fill into the chorus, and then the chorus does this, and here's the outro into this. So I ended up programming what I thought sounded cool, but was a relatively, very busy and relatively nutso drum part, as a reference. And so I did all these scratch guitar tracks, did guitar tracks that I thought were, when mixed, could be the final tracks. And at a certain point I said, I was seeing you post, because at the time, you were, I don't know if it had been your, I think my recollection, you tell me if I'm wrong or not, is as much as you can remember too, because it's been a minute. It seemed like I saw you basically you're turning your practice space at home into an actual studio. It seems like it had been more your practice space and maybe a project studio, but I saw you posting and you were really making it a thing, and also with lighting and decorations, or you could do, I know now you do a lot of Twitch stuff, live streams, right? But at the time, it was when you were posting about, I got this thing for the studio. I got this thing for the studio. Here's what I'm doing here. Here's some electronic stuff I got. And I remember I reached out to you. I don't think it was probably directly at that point. I think what it was I sent Carl a message and said, hey, I don't really know your friend, Mike, but I know him through it. And he blessed it. I'll have to ask Carl, or you can ask him because you'll probably talk to him later today. I'm pretty sure I asked Carl, is it cool if I reach out to Mike? And the response, I know I talked to him shortly after you said yes. And he was like, oh, that's Mike. Yeah, he'll be glad to do something. He loves to play. But so I basically programmed for most drummers who are not your level of skill, it would be a pretty hard thing to play. What was your response? I mean, it's not like, we'll talk about Primus and Rush or whatever later, but what was your response, if you could remember? What was your response when you heard the crazy thing that I sent you?
As I recall, I didn't feel like it was anything crazy. I listen to a lot of very crazy music, so it's for something to be a little bit over the top or wild, it's got to be fairly insane. But
it's not Carl King level drum stuff for sure.
As for most things like that, when I hear the scratch drum tracks or the program drum tracks, I'm just listening to it and going, okay, how can I best represent this and put my stamp on it a little bit and just keep it as musical as possible and not about look at me, because it's really, I'm in a supporting role there. It's not, it's not my project. It's somebody wants me to take program drums and instead, give them that same feel, but much more human. So, that's typically the approach that I take with that sort of thing. And I don't recall being, flummoxed by any part of that track in general. I just listened and absorbed and just thought about how I was going to approach it. At the time, actually, it's actually kind of flipped the other way around. I had a space that I had been recording in for quite some time. And then we ended up having to move in the middle of the pandemic, and that put us in a space where my space was dramatically smaller and way closer to neighbors. So, actually, your track was one of only a couple that I was actually able to track with live drums in that space before I had to switch to electronic drums to prevent drama in the neighborhood. But I've got
that sounds familiar now. I think part of it was you said, it'll give you a chance to see how this space works and et cetera.
And I had, I've got a nice selection of microphones, and just a modest but capable interface. And I've at the time I was using the pre-Sonus DAW, which was functional. But not, it wasn't my favorite. I still miss Cubase. That was probably my favorite. And currently I'm using Logic Pro. Chose Logic Pro eventually just because I have so many Apple devices, and it's nice to be able to, have it. So I'm running that on a Mac Mini with a monitor directly in front of my drum set. So I'm looking at the waveforms, I'm looking at, all the controls, and on my iPad, I've got the actual control panel for it. So like they're communicating, and, I can be handling all that instead of stopping what I'm doing, reaching over for a mouse or something. It's just, I have a nice little control surface that I can run it off of, and that's worked out really well. But for your track in general, I think I only did a few passes at it, really, and typically what I would do, in those situations is I would make a few passes. Find, if I'm happy with one or two, I'll send them, to see, okay, any notes? You got any notes that you want me to change? I have different sounds that I can pick. Like, how do you feel about the snare drum? I have other snare drums we can try, or I can tune differently, or, I'm listening from my perspective. Somebody's, writing, when somebody's putting their heart into music, I really want to cater to what they want, because it's their baby, so, if you would have said, hey, I want a deeper snare, we're going to put a deeper snare on that. Or if it, these cymbals are maybe a little too bright, or these cymbals are a little too dark. I mean, we have options to change that. So this is, it has been a little while. So, but from what I sent you, you seem to be happy with, like, kind of right out of the gate. I say this a lot. I seem to have some sort of an internal limiter. Like, when something's not appropriate, I just can't execute it. Like even like if I tried to put double bass parts where it doesn't fit, they're gonna be sloppy. But if I put them in where it fits, it's right on. If I do a fill and it ends up sounding sloppy, I'm just my first initial reaction to that is, well, that wasn't the right approach for that to begin with. That's that's my subconscious going, don't do that.
That doesn't fit here. So it's not, you could play it well if it fit, but it wouldn't. Internally, it wouldn't let you play it properly. I really have taught myself how to mix. Just because I'm putting this on the internet, don't feel like I'm not asking you to overly butter my biscuit here. But what did you think of the finished track that I sent you? Did you think, okay, did it hit you okay? Did it sound okay? Did I mix it all right to your ears? You've listened to it now a few different speakers and systems, I think.
I feel like it sounds great. It's always funny when I hear back something that I tracked a few years ago, and I may not remember like the actual tracking, or what it sounded like, because it's you do something, you're hyper focused on it for like a day, and then it's it's like disappears for a while, and then all of a sudden it's back, and it's like, oh, this kind of sounds familiar. Oh, wait a second, that's me. Like, it's I think it sounds really good. The overall composition is good. I'm into some crazy music. I mean, I like just really intense music in general. So that colors my excitement about really any music. So it's not like the kind of thing that I seek out to listen to on a regular basis, but as far as, if something like that came on, I would certainly take note and be like, oh, that's, there's some cool stuff going on in here. And I feel like the mix is really good. I wasn't really hearing like a lot of derivative nature out of it. And I'm sure you've got your influences, and we all do. We can't escape our influences. But it wasn't, it wasn't like I'm listening to a copy of somebody else's style. I was overall, very, very, very pleased with the result. And the mix was nice and even. I could hear everything of what's going on, which is, that's when we're listening to a mix, that's really what I'm, listening for. Can I hear the details of what's going on? Or is the mix taking me out of the listening experience? That's the hard part about examining a mix. Like when somebody goes, hey, can you tell me about this mix? It's like, well, first thing, is the mix like taking me out of the listening experience? I have the same problem with movies or television. It's like if I go from being engulfed by the story to wondering how the camera shot was got, it may be an amazing camera shot, but if now I'm thinking about the production aspect of it, that kind of takes me outside of the artistic experience.
You talk about influences for the music you're into, and I listened back to Wonderland, and I've thought about how do I describe it to somebody. I think about it, and it's sort of like Foo Fighters meets Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. Yeah. If you know the band from the Muppets.
Yeah, of course.
with it, because there's a lot of organs in there. I ended up lowering them a lot in the mix to not compete, because there's so many guitars. There's like 18 tracks of guitars. And to get the final mix where it really worked and nothing poked out in a bad way too much, I had to lower the snare about 7 or 8 dB. I love a loud snare. I had the snare so loud, and I had to lower the guitars about 4 or 5 dB, like the master guitar bus. Because as a guitar player, I'm always like, here's more guitar,
Yeah, no,
but I really had to lower the snare, and I had to lower the guitars quite a bit, because I'm not really a singer. I mean, me plus auto-tune plus every plugin in the Waves bundle let me sing the song. I'm not a singer. I'm lucky to have a few abilities, and singing I can get in the ballpark of what I want and then tweak it,
I can sincerely relate there. I notice when I'm doing live streams, I've always got, kick and snare on their own channels, even though it's, I'm doing an electronic kit. So most of the kit, I mean, there's like 40 pieces or 40 different triggers that you can hit on that thing. So, there's a lot going on, but the only 2 channels drum wise that are by themselves are kick and snare. And I tend to have those way higher. And I realize, when I'm doing it, like, I really like to hear that, but I have to, if I was to mix something, I would have to be going, okay, you like too much snare and too much kick drum. So let's dial that way back, and let's be a little more reasonable. Not everybody is hyper fixated on kick and snare. So when you speak about, dealing with mixing, when that's not your bailiwick, I typically, if I'm recording something, I tend not to mess with the mixing. I just try and catch everything as dry as possible. I'm trying to send, like, if I send somebody drum tracks, I'm sending them, this is bare bones, because I know you're going to mix it, or you're going to have somebody mix it. So you can do all the EQing and coloring how you want it to be. I've run into that before, where somebody sends you something and it's already like pre-mixed, and there's no place to go with it. It's like, don't be messing with it when you don't even know what else is going to be on there after. Yeah. So anyway, I found the overall result very pleasing, and it was it's always kind of fascinating to hear something back when it's you focus on it for a quick flurry, and then it's it disappears and then comes back later. I had the same thing happen with Hattie Webb. She and her sister were backup vocalists for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and Leonard Cohen, and she's worked with a ton of different people. And I did a drum track for her like 6 years ago, and then all of a sudden one day she tagged me on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, what's going on over here? And I open it up, and there I am with
there it is,
this whole album with all these other actual known players. And it was like kind of a trip to hear it, because it had been 6 years. I thought the track had just like been shelved or something, but here it is.
Well, that was kind of your response to me when I emailed you about, hey, so this thing is finally finished, and would you be cool to get on here and chat, and then maybe even we share it with people, part of our chat with people. And you said something, I forget the exact words, but it was basically like, yeah, it's great. I wonder whatever you said, something like, I wonder whatever happened to that project. Like, it had occurred to you in passing at some point. And I'm just glad to have it out there. I mean, I am, and I totally appreciate your take. And I know you like much more complex music than that. I mean, for me,
it's so much there's complexity as just I like emotionally intense music, which is not for everybody. I know a lot of people that are turned off by emotional intensity in music. I mean, that's you could use like Radiohead as an example. That's emotionally intense stuff, and there's a lot of people that are like, I just don't like this at all.
No, I love Radiohead. Yeah.
Same thing with the exceptionally heavy music, where stuff with very gravelly vocals, or where the vocals are more of a rhythmic instrument than a singing. That's just, it's too intense for some people. It just sounds like noise to them, because they're not they're not listening to it uncritically in that way. But
it means the world to me that you played on it. I've always respected you and your music in all the different incarnations I've heard. And so I'm really glad that you're part of this, and
Much.
I hope that maybe, maybe you'll be willing to work on something, in the future that I put together in a similar fashion.
I really enjoy taking part in the process of helping somebody realize, an artistic project, because it is, even when it's not, even when I'm only in a supporting role like that, it's just very gratifying. It's fun to help somebody else put something together. That's one of the things that being in the dance band has especially shown me is, of course, I started this with some direction towards, wanting to inflate my own ego. I mean, everybody likes to be told they're good at something, but the longer I do this, the more I see that it seems to be much more about what it does for other people. Like, and that too is a bit of an ego inflation. But when I'm playing some simple dance song that is just, straight 4 on the floor and nothing fancy, nothing flashy's going on, and I look out and see people on the dance floor just without a care on their mind, and just looking like they're living in the moment, that really, that's there's been many times where that's literally choked me up on stage, where I can feel my throat just going, oh geez, oh man, over some cheeseball song like Footloose or something, where I see people just losing their minds over this song, where I'm like, oh, I hate this rhyme scheme. Oh my goodness, look at how much this lady is enjoying this, and when I see that just makes my whole night, and of course, I love it if somebody tells me I'm good at something, but if you're going to do anything on stage or commit to anything artistic, you have to have some level of, you just have to feel like, okay, this is good because I'm good. You have to have some sort of confidence. If you execute any kind of art without inflicting your own confidence on it, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So there's some ego that's necessary, but I never want to be to a point where where I even act like I think I'm better than anybody else, because I can point immediately to 100 drummers that play circles around me who I just admire, like to the nth degree. So there's no room for me to go, I'm better than anybody else. I learn from people that are hobbyists. I learn from guitarists that program drum lines, and they're programming it like that. You clearly have never played drums in your life if you program it this way. But that's a challenge, and it brings something new out of me. And there's something to learn from every aspect, and that's that's the other greatest gift that music gives us, is the constant learning and growth. And this is why, one of many reasons, but it's one of the best reasons for me to just kind of dive into different projects when they're offered, is to try and expand my own musical vocabulary, and to have the humility to listen to what I'm doing with a less me-centric view to it. It's better to listen to, play it, and be a listener at the same time, and go, does this fit? Does this, am I adding to this, or am I taking away from it by doing too much? I'm always down to explore new projects.
All right. So look, I won't necessarily hold you to it. Obviously your availability, can always be the reason that you say no, as well as the fact that you're not feeling it or whatever. But I will hit you up when I have something else for you to consider. But sure. I think you killed it. I am so thrilled and so happy with what you did. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much. It was fun.
Well, hopefully,
even though I don't remember the exact track.
Even though it's been so long that both of us don't remember the details. Well, before I let you go, I do want to say, for the sake of just, whenever somebody I know has success in any group. I'm always rooting for people. And when I saw your recent, you have a couple of pieces of news, and me loving music that's different than Wonderland. You're on this new Secret Chiefs 3 record, I understand. And so that's something that excites a guy like me. And you also had this Primus. You were in the running to be the new drummer in Primus. So what have you been up to lately? Tell me, and for the sake of what I put on YouTube, tell folks what you've been up to, and what's next for you.
The Secret Chiefs 3 thing was like a complete kind of bucket list item for me, because I've been a massive fan of Mr. Bungle since I first became aware of them. And then, discovering Secret Chiefs 3 after that was like, instant favorite. Just the wild creativity and unorthodox pairings of different genres from, different cultures. That all is just was amazing to me. And I'd been to see them perform multiple times. It was like 7 or 8 times, and I'd reviewed some shows. A couple of the reviews are on Carl King's blog. I continuously was trying to network to just kind of ingratiate myself into that, or inject myself into those circles. And after a while, it paid off. They were playing in San Diego, and they needed someplace to stay on their way to go to LA. So Jason Schimmel, who is, also from a Stratosphere and one of my favorite guitarists in the world, he hit me up saying, "Hey, we need a place to stay." And I was like, absolutely. That was the opportunity to get my foot in the door, So, Trey and Pageman and Steve Goldberg stayed at the house. And everybody else had gone on through to LA, but they just wanted those 3 guys wanted to just kind of chill before heading to the show the next night. So we basically, they slept over. We ended up spending the day just talking about music, and Trey recorded a podcast episode for Carl's podcast in my little home studio there, and then we went out and got some Thai food, and they went along on their way. And it was a couple years later, Trey hit me up through Facebook Messenger of all things, going, "Hey, you want to work on some Secret Chiefs 3 stuff?" And I'm like, absolutely, yes. Like, my head almost exploded when I got that message. So that was a lot of hard work to do that, and that stuff's still not out yet. There's one track that I did with them for redhot.org. They did with the Kronos Quartet. They put together a compilation of avant-garde artists for a tribute to Sun Ra, and so we did one song, "Love in Outer Space," and it's believe it or not, my introduction to Sun Ra was learning Trey's version of that to then record the drums for, and so that started me diving into that whole catalog.
I saw Sun Ra in Athens, Georgia back in the day. I saw him.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. I'm still, I did a full album's worth of drums that I have yet to hear yet. So that's going to be another experience. Like, that's now been 2.5 years since, well, actually more than 2.5 years, because I stopped drinking during the study for that material, because it was just so wacky and complex. So I'm still waiting to hear that stuff. I've heard him with a couple of other drummers playing some of the stuff that I track drums for. So it's alive. It's just not. It hasn't been released yet. So I'm interested to hear that. Now the Primus deal, that kind of just came out of nowhere. Like before anybody really knew what was going on. My friend Tim has been part of the Primus camp since the late 80s, and I've been really good friends with him for I want to say the last 15 or so years. He'd gotten me backstage for a couple of Primus shows, and we just talk drums all the time, because he's the drummer for Victims Family, another one of my favorites. He sent me a message one day that he drum techs for bands like Beck and Roger Waters, and he just did Oasis's tour.
Oh, no kidding! Wow.
He's drum teching for a lot of big names, and just all of a sudden one day he goes, "Hey, I need you to send me some footage of you playing." And I'm like, "Oh, what's this for?" And he's like, "I can't tell you." Like, what do you mean you can't tell me? I can't tell you. So I had no idea what I'm shooting for. I just started filming stuff and sending it, and I'm like, I'm filming stuff left and right and trying to go. I have no idea. Just play stuff that sounds like me. Try to be impressive, but not look like you're trying to be impressive.
Don't be a try. Don't come off as a try hard, even if you are trying hard.
And it wasn't. I was doing that for several weeks. Just trying to come up with something that I was excited to send, and I was kind of just stabbing at the dark with that because I have no idea what I'm auditioning for. I'm at a thrift store one day, just kind of shopping around to keep my mind off of things. I open up Instagram and there's an announcement from Primus saying, "Hey, Tim Alexander's left the band, so we're going to be looking for a new drummer." So I'm like, I texted Tim and I'm like, I'm just seeing that Tim Alexander left Primus. Is that what this is about?
Any connection to
his
give me some video? Yeah. Could he finally say something then?
Yeah, his response was, "You got any more video?" Like,
yeah, you're like, you go to your Primus catalog all of a sudden.
Oh my God! Okay. So I spent the next several weeks just filming one thing after another, trying to come up with something that I felt was worthy of sending, and I was failing miserably. Like everything that I was doing, I was like, "No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough." And this is my internal voice saying. And meanwhile, I'm watching on YouTube as all these other drummers are also submitting, video after video after video, and we're talking thousands of people were shooting for this gig. And I'm seeing, players that I feel like are, way above my weight class were shooting for the gig. And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to, even with my foot in the door, there's no way I'm going to be able to compete with any of these people. After some time of just failing to come up with something that I was happy with, Tim told me, just put together something that represents, what you do, even if it's old clips, so I put together a clip. It's 6 minutes long, and it's just, very short clips, like 1 minute, maybe a minute and a half. There's only 2 Primus related clips in there. The rest of it is me jamming with loops, or, there was a track where I took a song by Tin Hat Trio, which is like chamber music that didn't have drums to it, and I put drums to it. There was one clip that I played along with a song by Sausage, which was basically the original members of Primus, and then a bunch of improv stuff, and then there's the only actual direct Primus drum line that I sent them was me playing the main that tribal sounding tom beat for Over the Electric Grapevine off of Tales from the Punch Bowl. And so I put that together, and I'm like, okay, I'm shooting my shot. This probably isn't going to do it, but I'm shooting it. So I converted the video, sent it, and then I think I went and started playing a video game to take my mind off of things. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting in this. And 20 minutes later, I got an email back from Les Claypool saying, we got your video and we really like what we're hearing, and we would like you to come make some noise with us in person. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's so awesome.
Me and my wife were jumping up and down and screaming in my kitchen. Just like, no doubt. I couldn't believe I was going to get the opportunity to actually, be in a room with a band that had literally been a game changer for me in my musical life, and so that preceded, several more weeks of preparation where I was just woodshedding all of the Primus catalog. And I did that. That was another 14 or 15 weeks that I was doing that. Every free night that I had, I was at my lesson studio with a kit that I had made specifically. I had really dialed it in for that kind of music. You know, it had octabands in it, small cymbals, one rototom, floor tom to the left, floor tom to the right, and so I was woodshedding that stuff for like 5 hours at a time, the entire catalog. And then they finally narrowed it down to like 5 songs. Then I was woodshedding those and continuing to woodshed the entire catalog. I wanted to be ready to just like,
if they called something from deep from the catalog, you're like, okay.
Yeah. Which,
you wanted the studio version or that live one you put out? It's like, which version do you want to do,
So when I got there in the room and Les jumped into Master of Puppets, I was ready because I have a bootleg of them playing that very same thing. So he jumped into it and I jumped right in. You see in the video, he's like, oh shit. I didn't expect you to be ready for that. And I'm like,
I'll link that. I'll link that with this video we put out for YouTube, because I love Primus, but I wasn't aware they covered Master of Puppets. And so I heard that in your audition video with them. And I'm like, it seems kind of random. I mean, but that's awesome.
But they never play the whole thing. They just do that.
Yeah, they quote the signature bit and then they go into something else, or they.
So I felt great about how I did. Like I was really up against some monster players, and so many people were shooting for that gig that I was blown away that I even got the chance. Even with my foot in the door, I still had to prove myself. And then when I got there and got in the room with them, I felt great about how I did. And when I left that room, I felt like, okay, there's a real chance that I could be the guy. And I don't know. There's not a whole lot I could say that feels better than that. Getting to jam with one of the most influential bands in my life, and feeling like, hey, this might actually happen. I might be their new drummer. But of course, I was disappointed when I didn't get the gig. But at the same time, it's like I have no regrets. And that was for them to put out it's like 22 minutes, I think. They put out, a long video of that whole experience, well produced. And it's like, man, it's been recorded for history. Like that's a real feather in my cap that if you would have told me 20 years ago that would even possibly happen, I'd be like, whatever. Like
I'll link it here. I mean, I've seen that, of course, several times, and you did an interview with a guy talking about the gig as well. I'll link that as well. But I mean, you did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
You did an awesome job, and like you said, they had some of the best guys out there, and they made I haven't seen the video of why they made their choice, but I mean, the ones I saw, the ones that I've seen, everybody really had something interesting to bring. Everybody could do the gig. Of the ones that got put out, everybody could do the gig, and then everybody just had their own thing. And who knows why people go a certain way. It's like casting a movie. I mean, there are tons of people who could act the part and do great, but it's like there's a certain little thing they're looking for. But I was super happy for you. Getting the shot is huge, and I think it's a real it's a real testament to your, not just your ability, but to you, because what a lot of people in film or music, people who are not working in film or music, don't understand is so much of it is just the ability. I mean, it's assumed that you have the skills to be in the room, but then it's like, are you the person that people want to be around? And clearly you were somebody they could also envision, potentially being the person that they're like stuck on a tour bus with for, 20 hours a day when they're not on stage or backstage getting ready. You're taking a shower afterward. It's like, I thought you did awesome. And
thank you so much.
I was really excited to see it. Mike, I appreciate you taking all the time out of your day to chat for the sake of the interwebs, as well as just catching up with me, man. I hope that I hope we can get Chris Tinsley to join us at some point. He had messaged me in the middle of this saying so sorry he got wrapped up with something and he couldn't get away. But I'm glad this ended up being me and you getting to talk. And please say hi to Carl for me. I tell
Well,
Carl I know I don't know if he feels like he's missing a call from me, but I owe Carl a catch up, so I'm gonna have to catch up with Carl as well.
yeah, I'm sure he'd dig that.
Nice. Well, man, I appreciate you. We'll talk.
I appreciate get to know you a bit better. So this has been very nice, and thank you for asking about things going on in my life as well, because it's fun for me to talk about.
I'd rather talk about almost anything than what I'm doing. So awesome, thanks, man.
Well, most excellent. Well, yeah, let's talk again soon.